Welcome to the Beyond the Deck podcast. I'm Beata Rouleau, founder CEO of Compass Consulting. Our sole mission is to help businesses break through growth bottlenecks by building and implementing systems that scale. So today I'm super happy to have Aditya here. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at Corridor Platforms. They are a company that is helping banks and credit unions modernize decisioning and safely adopt AI, which is so needed for that customer base. Aditya has 2 decades of experience scaling revenue teams with analytics-driven approach. And today we're going to talk about revenue teams, AI, and what growth is going to look like heading into 2026. So if you are founder, operator, anyone curious about this industry, this is going to be a great podcast for you. So Aditya, so glad to have you. I would love to just open it up and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and anything we should know about you.
Thank you. So I'm the chief. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast, Beata. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Corridor Platforms. We are very focused on the banking and healthcare, broadly the regulated verticals, and we have multiple products to serve the Tier-1 institutions and then Tier 1.5 and then mid-market. So this has been an exciting year, 2025, with advent of AI. And I'm eager about as we get into 2026 too, but we'll get into that one by one.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. If you could just start for people that have not heard of Corridor Platforms, talk us through who's your ideal customer and what problems are you solving for those customers?
Yep. In the regulated space, whether that's banking, insurance, or healthcare, what we find is there's, broadly speaking, a big gap between Tier 1 institutions and then the rest. In the banking space, for example, you've got Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, and then you've got a whole set of Tier 1.5 institutions and tier or mid-market institutions. So that decisioning, all of them at the heart are doing decisionings across the life cycle of a customer or a member, whether that's at prospecting, underwriting, member management, or customer management. Mid-market institutions, we generally find, tend to struggle to have that decisioning capability at the same level of decision sophistication, decision automation, and also having the right side of tool sets where a talent pool in that organization can actually harness all of that data, leveraging AI and Gen AI to make decisions smartly, quickly, and bring a lot of customer or member delight. Fundamentally, that decisioning upgrade, you need capabilities in software and tech to be able to do that, and that is, in a sense, is what Corridor provides.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Can you give, because I always like to make it tactical, can you give some examples of how the tool actually allows these customers, like what decisioning is it helping them with? How is it doing that? That would be really interesting to learn about.
Okay, so let's take an example in a simple example in underwriting. So if Beata was to apply for a loan to an institution, let's say she's applying for a new credit card, she'll come in through an aggregator site, and then let's say there are 4 or 5 financial institutions who approach Beata digitally and say, sure, we have credit cards that meet your spec requirements that you've laid out. Now, you've got, let's say, best-in-class institutions like Wells Fargo or Capital One, and you've got a set of community banks, mid-market banks, and some credit unions who are all want to get the worthy business of Beata. Now, at that point, there is decisioning that needs to be done to underwrite a credit card product with the right set of product features and the needs that Beata has. That underwriting decision is a highly regulated decision, and without double clicking too much on the regulatory aspect, there is a certain set of rule sets and risk assessment using AI that needs to be done on Beata to offer the right product, the right term, right line amount or the amount of the credit card that she can borrow against, etc., and the features and the benefits and the rewards. Fundamentally, those decisions have to be codified, they have to be best in class, and you got to do that in real time with a lot of automation because Beata is impatient. If she's got 6 browser tabs that she's working with and doing this, then she's going to go to the person that is most flexible, is most engaged, and the fastest in these six financial institutions that approached her, and only one wins. And that's that last mile in digital where you have to be best in class, you have to move fast, but you also have to be careful that while moving fast, you don't breach regulatory requirements so that you don't have a downstream problem with regulators, right? So it's moving, it's like saying speed with safety. That's so critical. And you have to be best in class in decisioning where your competitive moat, let's say you were a mid market institution, the competitive moat that you had with your customers, that's gone. In a digital world, anybody can approach anybody today and offer offer their products. So the market has become a lot more competitive in that sense. And so having best in class decisioning is not a nice to have, that's a must have if you want to survive in the digital world. And that's where we come in and we help institutions.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the speed is so you're so correct for the end members and customers. So many options. Whoever's going to get, I want to make a decision. I want what I want right now. I'm not going to wait around. If you come and I've already made my decision, then you've missed it. And so this tool sounds like it is something, it's definitely helping with efficiency, safely allowing them to make decisions quicker, but through that it's actually allowing revenue growth by allowing them to bring in new customers and member base by helping them make the right decision, get in front of them more quickly,
Correct.
which is
And
very
I, and
powerful.
I think the word is control loan growth because or control book growth. If you're in insurance, it'll be a book of insurance records. Now, the reason I use the word controlled is because you can't go hair on fire in 2026. You'll have a lot of losses, right? Because we have credit dislocation, we have credit stress in the market, which everybody knows about. So it's really about controlled, calibrated growth while handling for the risk that you have inherently there in your prospects and in your customers. So yeah, so that's it's all about control growth, in my opinion, going into 2026.
Yeah, control growth. I like that. And then talk to me about, so you've talked through who your customers are, and I'll put your CRO hat on. What is your current go-to-market strategy for actually working with your rev team to acquire new customers?
So we serve the upmarket tier ones. We also serve the mid market. So strategies would be appropriate to those. Let's take the mid market first. Our big approach is there. We are building our anchor client base, and we're very happy with certain set of clients we have today. Without double clicking too much into that, but really answering your question, as you scale in this space, I think it's very critical in the mid market to have that one to many reseller partnerships or strategic partnerships where if, and I'll give an example to illustrate that, lending origination systems, LOS, are a very critical element of the underwriting or loan life cycle. So if firms like Corridor, to, as an example, if we were to tie up with all of the major LOS providers where there's a natural fit, everywhere where technology is being used to run a production workflow using an LOS, if the analytical horsepower, we are able to up that using our capabilities and connect with these LOS providers, you have a natural partnership where you don't compete, but additively, you're much better than the LOs by themselves or Corridor by themselves. So finding these partners where there are natural synergies in the customer workflow is very critical because in the mid market, it's all about one to many. Because you crack a couple of such clients with a particular strategic partner, you can go to their entire base. You can go to an event and kind of be able to present the outcomes you've created and attract clients who are ready to take you because you've already preset all of these integrations in and you're ready to move, right? So that's kind of the mid market approach. On the up market, I believe that a lot of this, there's a big element of thought leadership is very critical. Being able to articulate the benefit that you're bringing to clients without risking them too much in the current workflows that they have is very critical. And having obviously referenceable clients in at the tier one level who are able to talk about your successes, the KPIs that you've been able to achieve for them, their business success metrics that you've been able to achieve is very critical. So having advocacy of your successful clients talking about you in tier 1 forums, whether those are conferences or webinars, is very critical there, because end of the day, in any market structure, the tier 1s or the larger institutions are going to be, well, maybe more than a handful, maybe 30 or 40, but they're not going to be thousands of them, right? So your approach is a lot more narrow narrow and deep versus wide, and every one that you acquire obviously has a large TAM of revenue that they can generate for you, right? So I think so those are some of the dynamics where mid market differs from up market in that way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And the strategic partnership, that I really liked that you brought that up, because that is something that across industry, but if you can find that right partner, like you said, where it's a natural fit for your customers. Do you have any advice for people that are wanting to engage in a strategic partnership? Any advice as they approach someone, what the best way to do that is? Because it can be such a powerful lever. But I think a lot of times, from my perspective, people go in with what's in it for me. And this has to be a win win on both sides. If you have any advice on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yes. So I think I'll just build on what you just said there. Has to be, how does that partner, that strategic partner, how does their value proposition elevate materially, significantly, because you are in the mix. So they look better than they were looking better than what they were looking earlier. That what's in it for them is a very critical element of your value proposition as you go to them, right? So that's, I would say, that's kind of point A. The point B, we live in a world today where people want everything to be done yesterday. So being able to work with your partners and give them the vision that if I was to come with you and we were to form a partnership and go to the market, we're going to make this highly prescriptive so that we can solve problems very quickly. Within 2 months, I can give you so much of value to an end customer. Within 3 months or 5 months, I can do so much. That's very critical. We have gone past, even at large institutions, we have gone past the life cycle of, or it'll be like 6 months or a year before you get any benefit. There used to be, more than a few years back, ERP deployments, if you remember, where they would, they'll span 18 months, 24 months. That patience, whether it's upmarket or mid-market, has gone. People want to see outcomes literally on a quarterly basis, right? So having well set prefabricated connections or connectors or integrations, so you can bring value even in a initial pilot setting. Being able to bring that value is very critical, and if you can articulate that to your partner, your partners are going to get excited. So making them look good, having preset integrations is very critical in kind of getting these partnerships going, in my mind, right? And then obviously having that initial anchor client is also important. And lastly, I think you got to think creatively about the commercial construct between you and your partner so that it is lucrative for the partner as the business scales. So thinking about the commercial construct is also an important element of all of this, right? Especially
Mm.
when you say not just the initial first couple of clients, but if you were to get a 40 clients, how commercially lucrative is it for the partner is also a critical element of all of this stuff.
Yes, that's a great point. And making sure as well for a long-term partnership that your growth is aligned. And, partnerships work when people are on in the same direction, similar speed. And so making sure, you're continuing to grow as your partners are growing. So you touched on a couple things of I want it and I want it now. And I think AI has played a big part in shifting. Everything is about efficiency and about speed. You're in a really interesting place where obviously you're leaning into AI with your products, but you're in a highly relational, network dependent industry. So I would love your perspective, just thinking about AI, of where do you think AI is going to have the biggest benefit, the biggest plus, and then where do you think a human element still matters and is important?
So I'm going to answer your question very focused around the sales processes and conversion efficiencies of clients, right? Because I think that's the intent of this podcast. I believe AI helps enormously in researching very quickly around the pain points that your clients have from public information, and sometimes even proprietary databases that you have access to, but you can pull the information out and have the AI discern what could be potential areas. Now, where I believe, well, while AI can massively accelerate that assessment cycle that you have to go through when you're making a pitch to a prospect, there is also the human element of knowing what kind of questions you're asking the AI, right? So I believe that, and that was second part of your question. If you have a good framework of situation, complication, or problem, and then solution. If you have a human framework that you've come up with, you've got some insights into it, you build that framework of how you're going to be pitching a client, and then take that framework, convert that to a set of prompts, and give it to the AI and say, now go find me where this particular prospect is in their life cycle, what are their potential pain points. That can really actually, high quality prompts can give you high quality information back, which you can use. And I use that approach quite a bit actively. I actively problem solve with clients with their financial data that I've been able to extract, and I extrapolate that to reasons why this is happening. And I will also leverage some qualitative information that the AI has thrown at me, and I'll say, well, you said this, and then this is something that I saw that you talked about publicly at an event. How are these related? Or this is how I think they're related. Do you agree with me? And if you do it well, it really can be very powerful, because your prospect will say, you really seem to know a lot about what I'm doing, and tell me more about how you can help me solve some of these issues that you've identified. I had a very successful pitch recently where I actually used that technique, and a lot of the research was really driven off AI. So that's kind of one part. The second part where I see AI also benefiting a lot, if used smartly, in terms of thought leadership, article writing in social media, thinking about ideas, staying on top of trends, and then being able to have an original point of view. I believe AI can help accelerate that. The hardest part is having enough hours in the day to do this. You're never in a situation, and Beata, you probably see that I've done enough marketing and branding for the day. It's a never ending story. It's like a treadmill that you're on, and at the end of the day, you haven't done enough. You've done 60% of what you thought, and that's okay. That's great. The point being that you don't have enough hours in the day for that. And if you're able to have certain insights about the market structure and have the AI feed you what's going on, and then form certain hypotheses, having an original point of view in a world where there's a deluge of AI generated content is very critical. So if you have a certain point of view and you get a Claude to go write that into maybe 5 paragraphs that you can put out as your point of view, well, you accelerate that cycle with AI, but the crux of it is still your human assessment is very critical. And if you're able to combine that human element with content generation, intelligent point of view, well-written content using AI, you can really get best to breed of both worlds. Then you kind of do that again and again. Then the mental muscle becomes good. Your workflow, how you use AI, also gets better and better. Over time, you really truly differentiate yourself.
Everything that you said, I'm over here nodding. Really good points made. I just wanted to re-emphasize a couple of them. High quality prompts. They are so important. They get you better results. A lot of people are using LLMs as chatting with your best friend. Send a sentence, sends it back. Send a sentence, sends it back. But if you're able to generate prompts that you can reuse, I love your research example. That's what I use for this podcast. That's what I use for prospect, preparing for a discovery call. I don't have time to go through all the recent posts and announcements across all platforms. It can summarize all of that to where humans come in is then we can build a connection off of that. But it's cutting down that and then actually having a unique point of view. So a lot of people are using AI to do the thinking for them rather than we are humans. We have original thoughts. AI is just repeating what it has access to. And so having an original thought and then using these to expedite it, I thought both of those were great things to emphasize for the audience. Um, awesome. Okay, so I always like to ask this question. I'm a very numbers driven person. And so I know every leader has different metrics that they're obsessed with. So I would love to know what are a couple metrics right now that you're thinking about and focused on.
One very important metric that is truly reflective of conversion efficiency is, and this is kind of the nirvana of it, like where you're talking to somebody and says, hey, I heard about you from that particular person who might be a client of yours or not. Or, oh, and shamelessly plugging here, but I have a podcast called Bits and Banks. And so, oh, I saw that Bits and Banks podcast on LinkedIn, and I really liked that interaction that you had. And can you tell me a little bit about this part of that, particular podcast? So to me, being in the buzz is very critical, but not just buzz in a, because we are at a B2B, business to business setting. So I'm not talking about the TikTok kind of B2C buzz. I'm talking about a buzz where somebody comes in and you meet them at a networking event or at an event or a conference, and you're talking to them in a cocktail hour and say, you know what, I've heard about you. I've heard some of your offerings, and could you tell me a little bit more, because I was curious, but I'd never met you before. Buzz that you're able to create between human to human interaction, where a particular prospect has met somebody who knows you well, or and it's never one, by the way, it's always additive, or they've seen you on social media in in something that they've subscribed to, or they've heard you and such. So having that all come together, where your prospect automatically goes from cold to warm even before you've uttered one word to them, that to me is a very important metric. If you went to a networking event, there were 100 people, and there were, let's say, 20 qualified folks that you would want to talk to. Of those 20, how many knew a little bit about you because of the buzz? Let's say even 5 out of the 20 knew about you. That would be awesome. 25% of that 20 knew about you. That would be awesome for me, right? So to me, that is the ultimate metrics. I know there are more upstream metrics to this, like impressions you get on your LinkedIn and such. But I think all of that really drives to this, right? Because if you are multimodal in your branding and getting your name out, your value proposition, your thought leadership, all of that really comes down to this quality interaction you're having with the prospect, where they know a little bit about you. That to me is the ultimate metric of how convincing you can get, right? And I think that's really, yeah. So to me, one big conversion metric is really that. Do they know about you before you have your first interaction with them? Even to a slight degree is very helpful.
Yes. I think the recent data is they need 8 interactions with you, with your brand, for it to really solidify for on average for them to take action.
Yes,
And I think it's also a good litmus test for, are we actually reaching people in the right ways? Because if you get in that room and there's 20 qualified people and none of them have heard about you,
yeah,
okay, where
it's
we
much
might
harder.
be going in the wrong, we might be marketing in the wrong areas. And so let's pivot our strategy. So I really like that.
Correct, correct, correct.
Okay, great. So we are at the end of 2025. I would love to know where you and Corridor Platforms are headed into 2026, what you're focused on.
Very excited about 2026. This market has opportunities and it's also scary, kind of both ways, right? But for us, we offer our services both from the growth perspective and also from the risk perspective. So when things get tough, people look at risk very carefully, and we have offerings that enable them, or we have offerings for our prospects which enable them to manage and control risk in a proper way. Let's break that down. So let me talk about GenGuard X, which is one of our offerings, GGX. And our core premise there is that today, as we get into 2026, there was a fairly influential study done by a bunch of MIT folks which said that only 5% of use cases for LLM powered agents are going to production, because there's a lot of risk that is inherent, without getting too much into detail, but there's a lot of risk inherent in these pipelines that you have to suss out, evaluate or eval, and then address them, then get it approved, then move to production, and then observe the outcomes after that to make sure that all of this is controlled in a way that you have low residual risk, and you can be confident, you can sleep well in the night while the AI driven agent is performing its job. Now, all of this, we're excited because this offering for us is what we're putting out into the market. We've already run a very successful pilot recently for about 3 months. We had 12 institutions of different sizes who came in and were part of this initial pilot, and we will be expanding into that going into 2026. I think while there is some bubble in the AI space or Gen AI space, as we know, a lot being talked about in that area, but the fundamental opportunity for Gen AI to transform cost efficiencies. Let's just start there right now. Eventually, we'll get to revenue enhancements too. But even just cost efficiencies, the opportunity that it has is phenomenal, right? And I think a lot of, especially in the large verticals like healthcare, insurance, banking, which are highly regulated, there is some hesitancy of putting these use cases to production. It's fairly complex. The entire process is very complex, and it's also novel. It's new. So for us, that's exciting with what we're trying to offer with the GenGuard X product, which is really a watchdog, enabling you to move your use case to production and then deliver on all of that investment that you're making, deliver ROI on that. And on the mid-market side, where where we are teaming up with one of our clients to launch a credit union service organization. The mindset there, which is an entity which will serve the credit union community, we're very excited because there the opportunity is to really help mid-market institutions in the credit union movement to really upgrade their decisioning capability so they can compete, be very effective relative to tier 1 institutions or fintechs or other banks. And I think both of these are strong growth levers as we look into 2026. There's a whole bunch of execution that needs to be done, but I'm very optimistic. Irrespective of market scenarios, there are opportunities on the growth side, there are opportunities on the risk side here for us.
Yes, great. Yeah, both of those are great to know. As we wrap up our time here, I know you have your podcast, so please plug that. Where else can people follow along with you or with Corridor platforms?
Sure. So we're fairly active on LinkedIn. So you'll find me, my link, and as I'm assuming as part of the podcast release, we'll put it out there. Bits and Banks is the name of the podcast. It's you can access it via LinkedIn. There's a LinkedIn page for that, which is accessible from Corridor platforms. And then all the long form of the podcast are hosted on our website, and the short form have reels that are posted on LinkedIn with a commentary about kind of a point of view that I and the person I was interviewing had set up. So that's how you could reach out to us, and we'll be happy to speak to you folks and go through our propositions and how we can help you in the marketplace to succeed.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been really great to talk through a lot of different things: strategic partnerships, AI, what in the world is going to happen in 2026. So, thank you so much for your time. And just thank you for sharing some of your knowledge and expertise with my audience.
Sure, happy to be
Yeah.
here.